Hello everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thanks for joining me. It's Saturday night. We're doing our live weekly readings. Thanks for joining me, getting back on the Saturday schedule. Saturday is just a better day overall. I feel like there's less people commuting and the stream is actually a whole lot better. We have found that the stream is a lot more stable on Saturdays rather than on Fridays. So those of you guys who have been supporters and members of the channel, we've been kind of flip-flopping a little bit, but we are here to stay on Saturdays. This week we're doing live astrology readings. We're taking a look at your questions and pulling the charts and looking at transits or certain natal aspects that you may have questions about. So if you guys are a member, those of you guys who are members who pop in or tune in, do let me know if you'd like to have your monthly reading. Give a shout out to all of our level 2 and level 3 people just for supporting the channel. People like Paula, Katherine Murray, Hera Zed, Nancy Phoenix, Jessica Martinez, Angeli, Emma, and Susan Wexler. Thank you guys for joining. Obviously, any support, whether you're just watching and liking or commenting, or if you do decide to join any one of my level memberships, it does support the channel and make it possible for me to do what I'm doing. But if you're a level 3 member, you're going to get a reading from me once a month during my live shows. So whether it's a 3-card tarot spread once a month, or if you have a question about your transits, you are one of the first people who I talk to. So you can pop in at any point in time on one of my Saturday night shows and ask questions. So we've got Paula, Katherine Murray, Nancy Phoenix, and Jessica Martinez. You guys are the ones who are left for the month. So just give me a heads up if you're in the chat. Those of you guys who are not subscribers, totally cool. You can hang out, watch, learn about my reading process. You're also more than welcome to scan the QR code up here. If you're on a tablet or if you're watching on the computer or on a TV screen, you can just scan that and you can go directly to my PayPal and make a donation. Also, we have Super Chat, so it's easy, whatever works best for you guys. Obviously, it's a little bit easier to be able to use the PayPal link because it's quicker. People have been just commenting that it's just a little bit more user-friendly. But if you do make a purchase, just let me know because sometimes PayPal has a little bit of a delay. I'm answering questions in the order that we receive payments, so just be patient with me. I promise I'll get to you. If I skip you for whatever reason, just give me a shout out. And if your name differs on PayPal from your YouTube name, let me know because sometimes people have 2 different names. Now, for me to be able to pull your chart, I have to be able to get specific information to cast your chart. I'm a Western astrology reader. I use Placidus. I do not use whole sign houses. For transits, I like to use Placidus for accuracy. I'm going to need your exact date of birth, including the year. I'm American, so if you're not American, just be mindful. Please spell out the month so that way we don't have any confusion with the dates. I will also need the exact time of birth and the city and location of birth. Having this allows me to cast your chart and get a really accurate look at your natal chart and the transits and what's happening in the skies right now. You can't find that information, no worries. We're usually here every week. You can check a birth chart calculator and you can cast it and come back. Or if you would like, you can also take a look at a birth certificate. Usually you can find that information there. So we'll be back in 2 weeks doing astrology readings. Again, if you guys don't have that information tonight, no worries. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thanks for joining. Thank you very much, Maria. I've got you in the queue. Hey, Cassidy. Hey, Kirk. Nice to see you. Totally, you can ask questions on PayPal. No worries. Wendy, you are definitely in time. Give people a couple of minutes just to kind of filter in, chat a little bit about some stuff that's kind of going on in the cosmos. If you guys are having questions also about the donation for readings, $40, ask whatever question you want about a transit or just a situation in your life if you're looking for help understanding why certain things are going a certain way, or if you have a question about a natal aspect in your chart. And also $65 if you have questions about Synastry. So if you have yours and somebody else's birth information, we can look at the chart, kind of things like, are we compatible? Why do we fight? How can we better communicate? Stuff like that are great questions for Synastry. Obviously, we're not doing composites. Sometimes we look at lunar returns. Solar returns are a little bit more complex. And so we want to keep it to like one question about a transit or your chart, or if you have a question about just some of the themes from a lunar return, okay? So yeah, just let me know, guys, if you do end up making a purchase. We definitely have somebody who's already in the queue. And once again, if any of the level 3 people pop in, let me know and we can go ahead and get into your questions. I haven't heard from anybody yet, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with people who have made purchases. So we've got Maria, we've also got Kurt and Wendy. Thank you guys for joining. Maria, no worries. If you want, I can make a note. I can either send it back to you if you want to do that, or I can keep the credit and you can check in next week if you have a question specifically about tarot. It's up to you. I would totally bust out the cards, but then everybody's going to want a tarot reading and for me to go back and forth. I don't have the overhead shot, so I'm not really going to be able to do the tarot readings the way that I would want to. So if you want, let me know. I'm happy to shoot that back to you, or I can just make a note and you can ask a tarot related question if you would like next Friday. Let me know. Hey Kirsten, nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Astro is fine. Okay, cool. So we got a couple people. We'll go ahead and get started. If you guys have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate. Let me know. Sometimes the chat goes a little quick, so try to send your birth information in the memo so I'm not losing it as I scroll up, because I don't want to keep you guys waiting. So let's go ahead and get into Maria's question. So she sent this to me 12/12/87, 12:12 a.m. So magical. So magical. I've probably told you that before. All right. We can definitely tell a lot about what's going on in your transits, though, just to answer your question, even though it's not tarot. So 12/12/87, 12:12 a.m. Change that time zone, and we'll get into your question. So, kind of touching on, I know it was a tarot-related question. With Mercury retrograde happening, I have a feeling that the past love interest might be coming back. Can't shake this feeling. Will the Aussie reach out during this retrograde? So we can definitely take a look at what's happening with the Mercury retrograde. Never get sick of hearing it. Okay, cool. So those of you guys who are new to looking at transiting charts, don't get overwhelmed. The inner chart is her natal placement. So just confirming 12/12/87, 12:12 a.m., West Palm Beach, Florida. So that gives her a Virgo rising, Sag sun, and her moon is also in Virgo. So interesting that you're saying, like, I have this feeling that a past love is going to reach back out. Yeah, you could say that. I would say in terms of who it is specifically, I have a couple ideas. One is you've got a retrograde. I might sound like a broken record, but you have a retrograde, a Venus retrograde, and a Mercury retrograde happening in your 5th house of romance and dating, right? So a retrograde to review, reconnect, rework, reorganize, all of these things. So the past does somehow come up for reflection during this time. Now, when you're having a Venus retrograde, which is more love, relations, partners, people who you were in love with, certainly it's not abnormal in this part of your chart for there to be people from the past who come back. 2 is that your natal Venus is in the 5th house. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but you're having like 3 Venus returns. One you already had not too long ago when Venus hit 17 degrees. You had another one that was a couple days ago, which was a kind of a turning point where it's like, okay, now I'm reflecting on something. So whether this is you kind of going, oh, I have this feeling they're going to come back around, or this is just you reflecting on how relationships in the past have gone. Were you really in love with that person? Were they really in love with you? And it's super powerful because it's also in conjunction to transit Pluto. So that can be this whole like, did they ever get over it? You know, am I over it? Do we have some kind of potential opportunities for closure? Things like that kind of come through your chart. Now, on the flip side, we also have a Mercury retrograde happening. Now, super important, right? Because you're a Virgo rising. So it's important when there is a Mercury retrograde or there are conjunctions happening with Mercury, right? So I know that down the road, we're actually going to see here in a short period of time, now that the Mercury retrograde has started, This might be you, because usually you're Mercury, and it's like you going like, oh, like my antennas are picking something up in the ethers. Maybe you have a dream about them. You have this feeling they're going to reach out, they're going to call. I would pay attention to that. It's a pretty strong intuitive hit. And probably when there's either a conjunction between, I would say, like the sun and Mercury, you may have a dream, because it's going to highlight your 12th house. So it's like a dream of a past, romantic partner. You guys may work something out actually in a dream sense. You might see them, whatever. It might be their way of kind of reconnecting to you, even if they don't do it in the third dimension, as weird as that sounds. Some days that I think are worthy of mentioning will actually be when Mercury drops back down and comes into the conjunction with the sun and Pluto. I'll give you those dates. But also when perhaps maybe like Mars comes into a conjunction with Venus, or maybe like when Mars is hanging around your natal Neptune, because that's going to instigate your third house. That's going to bring a text message, a phone call, some kind of significant change in another person's life, which would make them want to reach out to you, okay? Also, in the midst of all of this, we do have, once Mercury goes retrograde back into Capricorn, it's actually sextiling your North Node in Pisces in the 7th. I notice your North Node is at 28 degrees, which means people come, people go, they're around, sometimes they vanish. Sometimes you connect with people like very psychically before there's like other changes and things that are kind of happening in relationships for you. So just some food for thought. Some important days and transits that I see kind of happening are going to be right around here when you have the Sun Mercury Cazimi. That might manifest as like the dream right around January 22nd. When Mercury drops back down to Capricorn and conjuncts Pluto, super healing and kind of like cathartic. But something about maybe January 29th through February 3rd can be another time window when you hear back from someone. I know you mentioned like the Aussie, right? So that can be very like Neptune, because it's somebody who's from another culture, from a different place. Maybe they live there right now. I don't know what the situation is, but that seems to be significant, especially with conjunctions that are happening with the sun. It's highlighting both Neptune and your 12th house, which can be a foreigner. It can be that somebody says, oh, I had a dream about you and I'm reaching out. Then the days that I would look for, this seems to be the strongest day, would be right around February 3rd. So when Mars comes into conjunction with Neptune and it trines your moon. So look at that. Looks like it's going to be right around then. Retrogrades are retrogrades. I feel like this is one that packs a major punch, because if you never got closure, if something you feel like was never finished, if something was never done, if you wanted to know like, oh, did it break your heart as much as it broke my heart? Do they even care? These are the kinds of things that may actually be unveiled to you in the midst of this retrograde. Oh, he moved back. Okay, so when it is like the conjunctions to the sun, right? The other thing is like, a theme that you're going to see in this next year, whether it's with him or it's with another person, is that Jupiter, which rules foreigners from other countries in your chart, both in a sense of your 7th house traditional lord for Pisces, but also it rules your 4th house. You're going to see Jupiter and Neptune align this spring, and it's going to square all your Sagittarius placements, and it's going to represent the possibility of a connection with a person at a distance, or maybe they live in another country, and some of like the back and forth and the friction that you have and getting all emotionally kind of all over the place with, they have feelings, they live there, they want to come back, they don't know if they can come back. Do I go to them? What do I do? Right? It's going to be like the Jupiter Neptune square to both your sun and natal Saturn. And what's gonna happen is that square is the energy of Mars. So it's gonna push somebody to come out with their feelings, or finally put an end to the connection, or finally say, hey, this is how I feel. Would you move? Could I move? How could we do domestic things? But I'm also liking the sextiles that are going to be happening between Pisces and your planets in Capricorn. Capricorn's very practical, serious. It's really focused on a goal. And so if you have Venus in Capricorn, it's like, well, what's the plan, right? What's our long-term goal? What are we building together? So I look at the sextiles actually happening with all the planets that are in your 5th house, 2 transit planets in Pisces, and it's like you guys can be finding yourself in a situation of having serious conversations about what your goals or your dreams may be, where you may live together, things like that. One thing I'll tell you that I've said to other clients before during my live also is that like we have a tendency to fall in love with the same person just in different bodies. So you can see some repetitive kind of energies with your Pisces descendant. So it's like you're going to be a magnet this year for foreigners. You're going to be a magnet this year for people who like to go surfing, hanging out on the water, all kind of Pisces things. People who may have family in other countries, or they may be going back and forth. Also, you're going to notice that you're going to bring in more poets, artists, musicians. Being that your descendant is at a 19 degrees, it is a Libra degree, okay? So you've got Jupiter, Neptune going into the 7th house, which is like trying to find this like ultimate fantasy situation, which is very Disney storybook romance. But at the same time, it's sextiling your Venus. So it's like, okay, we can talk about all of these things, but we need to make it a reality, right? So there's something about going, we need to have solid plans. I also have Venus in Capricorn, and one thing I'll tell you is that, and it's also conjunct Neptune like you, when I saw Uranus in my 8th house in Taurus the last couple of years, receiving a trine from, when I saw Venus receiving a trine from Uranus in Taurus, my love life got really colorful. Like a lot of things started changing. There was a lot of people who would come in and go, and it was like rehashing things and clearing things out. I have a feeling that when Uranus moves to about 17, 18 degrees for you later this year, and it moves into your Placidus 9th house, right, which is about foreigners and a distance and longer trips and possibly considering relocation, you're going to have an opportunity to make some big changes and consider moving to somebody or somebody moving closer to you. And I think that'll come up a lot in May, June, because of the eclipses that are going to happen in Taurus, because of the trine from Uranus to your Venus, and also because there's going to be a Mercury retrograde happening, and it will go from Gemini into Taurus in your 9th house, right? So yes, okay, if he comes back, entertain it, but you have to really practice being grounded and not living life with rose-colored glasses on with this relationship, because that Jupiter, Neptune in your 7th house can sometimes materialize as people who are too good to be true. It can manifest very literally too. The Jupiter, Neptune is people who are like, hi, I'm in Australia, and Australia's, locked down and I can't go anywhere. Like, can you come to me, right? So there's going to be some topic like that could also happen, or that he is not able to actually come to the States. Or the 9th house deals very specifically with ceremonies of the legal or religious or spiritual kind. So the actual marriage in terms of the relationship is 7th house. The ceremony, getting married, that's more the 9th house. So you have Uranus going into your 9th house, and it's going to trine your Venus. And it could be a situation that's like, he can't come to the States. You don't want to relocate and move to Australia. So you guys start talking, and part of Jupiter sextiling your Venus is going to be conversations like, well, what do we do? Do we get married? So that is kind of the feeling that I'm getting that's going to start happening in your horoscope over this next year. I also feel like you're coming into your Jupiter return, and Jupiter is the ruler of your 4th house, and it's in the 8th, and it's going to trine all your planets in the 4th. So it's also going to be about the second half of 2022 and all of 2023, how you're merging with another person spiritually, how you're merging with another person financially, how you're actually having big changes and transformations in your intimacy life, but also in your home life. So it's like sometimes it's the right person, the wrong timing, right? Especially with some of the transits that you're having right now. Like maybe it wasn't the right timing in the past, but it's better timing now. But I go both ways, I love Jupiter and Neptune in the 7th house. It feels like super romantic. I don't love Jupiter and Neptune square your sun and also your Saturn, which makes me feel like you are putting yourself in a position of being very vulnerable, and you don't want to fantasize about the idea of having somebody, Leo in the 12th, and then, have them building it up, and then have them vanish, right? Something about Pisces season, something about Gemini season makes me feel like there's like a lot of like reworking things. And I have found for these Virgos who have Virgo rising. I know you're a Sag, Virgo rising with really heavy mutable placements in the 10 and the 4th. They're dreaming and hoping for a really strong romantic partner, but they're super stubborn and unwilling to relocate or to make changes in their job, or they're unwilling to just be more flexible with where you can actually do the work that you're doing. So I would take a good hard look at, well, what's going on in your professional life, because part of what's going to materialize with Jupiter and Saturn coming into your 7th is going to be somebody who may offer you the gift of living together, getting married, starting a relationship, but it's going to square your Chiron and it's going to square your Saturn Uranus. And to me, it looks like you're somebody who, number one, is a great candidate for living in another country, because you have Sun, Saturn, Uranus all in Sag. Your soul would love a good relocation. You would love to be able to go and be in another place. By the way, Sagittarius rules Australia. It also rules Spain and parts of South America and a couple other places. So this is a great chart to possibly consider relocating, whether it's across the country or across the world. The problem that I'm seeing is that Saturn Uranus is, on one hand, wants to buckle down and it wants to super focus on staying in one place. And Uranus is very erratic and it's like, yes, let's move for love. Actually, no, let's not do that. That's really scary. Yes, let's do that. I don't know. That's making me really vulnerable. I don't know if you resonate with that. I also have Saturn and Uranus in my 4th. So I know what that's like. And that's more a mirror of how you were raised, where you grew up. You know, your chart seems to talk about maybe that your family of immigrants and maybe just, you know, your ancestors moving from one place to another, you know, brought up a lot of fear and instability and challenges and adapting to a new country. So you carry that with you, right? But on the same level, there is this energy of where there has been breaks and patterns in just your upbringing, right? Usually Saturn Uranus in the 7th house is like, you moved a lot, there was an unreliable parent, there was some kind of situation where maybe there was divorce or just like a lot of disruption in the home, and especially with men, right? Because the sun is a man. So to me, I'm like, ooh, it's kind of some daddy issues or grandfather issues, or, you know, some challenge revolving around men staying in the home and a lot of instability, and like how that has really affected you on an emotional, psychological level. So what do? We work those issues out through relationships, right? Especially when all of the planets that you have in Sag square the nodes. So I know that was a very long explanation, but the long and short of it is you can bring in a very significant relationship in the midst of this retrograde, or people who you're really in love with can come back. The thing that I would say is from one Cap Venus to another Cap Venus, like, you need to be a ball buster. You have Venus and Neptune in your 5th house, okay? Neptune is the ruler of your 7th. So if somebody comes back and they want to entertain yes, let's get on the FaceTime and let's talk about getting back together and wouldn't this be so amazing, I would say make it real. Those planets being situated so close to each other with a 10-degree conjunction in your 5th is telling me that you want something stable, you want true love, you want something that's going to be defined, you want a title on it, and it's not just about love, it's about doing the work to facilitate the 5th house. So there's going to be lots of conversations, not just about partnership and marriage, but also, do you want children? That's a big lesson right now for a Virgo rising chart. Mercury and Venus in your 5th house is like, do you want to have kids? And are you choosing partners who also are taking the same kind of perspective when it comes to family home building, if that's something that you want? Being that Saturn is the ruler of your 5th and it's very close to your sun, you may have very strong opinions about having kids, so it might be like a absolutely not thing. I don't know. But I think that if you were to have children, you weren't really supposed to do it until you were coming out of your Saturn return, because you needed to deal with a lot of like 4th house stuff. So like a Mercury and a Venus retrograde happening in your 5th is like reworking the idea of love and children and like what's worth working for and like what needs to be disposed of and kind of thrown in the trash, right? Conjunct Pluto. So if he comes back around, just knowing what I know about the sequence of the mutable transits in your chart this year, it's just really important for you to just really see things for what it is and not get lost in the idea of, oh, it has to be him, because it could be several months down the road and you know, you you have some challenges. Mars is also going to go retrograde at the end of this year in Gemini, and that's going to instigate a grand mutable cross where there can be like, okay, maybe you do make the decision to make moves or whatever for him. Then the end of the year is like adapting and trying to figure out how to work differently. Definitely something worth following up back on. So if you wanted to come back for another reading, I would say it's kind of worth looking into that, probably closer to the spring, once this sequence is over and it's not really going to get fleshed out until the beginning of March. So please do circle back and like let us know or comment or something and let me know if that ends up happening, okay? Hopefully that was helpful. So let's go ahead and check in with Kurt. I was actually in a small fender bender 20 minutes ago, didn't exchange information with the dude. I mutually backed up within a parking lot. I'm wondering if it's a good lead to any legal trouble. I was sort of like, are you good? And he was like, I'm good. We just gave each other the thumbs up and drove off. Just wondering if this is going to bite me in the ass. Thanks. Okay. Good question. Sorry to hear about that. Very Mercury retrograde. This one is not screwing around. Let's plug your info in and let's take a look and see. I love looking at your chart. It's one of my favorite charts these days. You've become a regular. Okay, and it was 10:30. And that was in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Fender bender. To me, that seems more, yeah, obviously Mercury. Mercury rules your third. And you've got Mercury that's going retrograde over your natal Uranus. And Pluto is there as well. To be honest with you, I kind of feel like the fact that Mercury is going to retrograde back to that degree with Pluto is something to watch. Saturn is the dispositor and Saturn's on your sun. You know, it also could have been the full moon as well because it was happening in an angle to your moon. Super overwhelming full moon for you. It's already kind of building. The full moon's going to be, I think, somewhere around like 26. It's 26, 27. I think 27. So it's going to be exactly square your moon, and it's creating a T-square, which is the ruler of the fourth. Fun fact, traditional astrologers actually see vehicles and things more so related to the fourth house than the third. So in a case like this, you know, a full moon in a square to the moon, which rules your fourth house, that's creating like a fender bender. If something's going to come back, right? Like if you're going to hear back from something, personally, just kind of looking at the Mars square Neptune, which is fading, I'm not too worried about it. If something's going to come back, though, my guess is it's going to be when Mercury retrogrades back and it conjuncts Uranus. And you'd have to have a lunar aspect, too. So you'd need to have like a square. So a day to watch may be like the January 24th. That's if you hear something back. And another day to watch will be January 30th and the 31st. Those seem to be like days that it would bring something up, right? Mercury coming retrograde conjunct Uranus, reactivating anything, you know, relating to that crunch. And also in the conjunction to Pluto, which would be insurance type stuff, right? So to me, that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. Now, Mercury is going to come back to that degree again. So that's going to be closer to right around here. That'll be February 9th. So I think, once you're kind of getting out of the Mercury-Uranus conjunction, I would say give it until about February 10th or so. If you haven't heard anything, bounce back. I know that that's like about 3 weeks, almost a month. If you haven't heard anything by then, I really get the impression that not much may happen. Now, down the road, and this is something worth mentioning, when Mars and Venus come into conjunction with Uranus, and you have a Mercury-Saturn square, another day just to watch while you're traveling and while you're moving for any other future potential fender bender energies, okay, when Mercury squares the nodes around March 5th. I guess it's also safe to say that once you get to that point and Mars and Venus have left the conjunction to Uranus and Mercury's no longer squaring the nodes, like you're really in the clear. But in terms of like having that accident today, very Mercury. No, I'm not saying you always get into a wreck when you have a Mercury retrograde, okay? Because people hear that and they freak out. It's just today, Mercury square Uranus. It's some kind of sudden, sharp change, can be a fender bender, especially if Mercury rules cars for you, and Uranus is the ruler of the 11th house. But in many ways, I think it's like you handled it in a friendly manner, right? Where Mercury square Uranus is like, oh my God, I got into an accident. Like, it's like the person who looks at you and is like, yeah, I'm good, no worries, take it easy. Like, very unexpected. Mercury also will square again, and it will conjunct Saturn. So it makes me feel like by the time you come out of this and Mercury comes back into a conjunction with Saturn and squares Uranus, you may not be so lucky if you get into another accident. I guess that's my warning. So this would be right around here. Obviously, you'd need some kind of lunar aspect to make that happen. So I would say February 21st through, the 25th, like take it easy. That Mercury square Uranus is going to bring up the retrograde again. It's closing out whatever you've dealt with. But at that time, Mercury is going to come into a conjunction with Saturn, and you've got all these other planets in a square to your moon, right? So it can materialize as another accident that happens, but Capricorn I see is like people in uniform. So it's like there can be another accident that happens where, touch wood, there is a fender bender and somebody has to call the cops, and the cops show up and they create, some kind of a report, and it may be for, insurance purposes. Venus, Mars, and Pluto all conjunct. So that's a big one. I would just say take it easy, drive slow. Mercury Uranus is what I see when there are lots of accidents that happen. Even your sun is at a 3, so it deals a lot with with vehicles and movement and things relating to being in transportation and driving, right? And yeah, but I don't really feel like I see any major conflict. That's not really kind of coming through the chart. I feel like if that's how Mercury retrograde started for you, then it looks like you got off easy, to be honest with you. So make sure you make note of those dates that I gave you, because if anything's going to come up, I believe it would be during that time. But I don't really get the feeling that that's the case, to be honest with you. Down the road, and this is way down the road, and maybe this is a result of the eclipse that we had in Taurus, which is in your second house. We are going to see in May, June, there are more eclipses coming in Taurus in your second house of resources, and there's a Mercury retrograde. So, can there be things that go on that you have to pay for a vehicle, touch wood, hoping there isn't another accident in your future, but if there is, it's like that would be the one you would pay for, right? I see this as like the warning. It's kind of funny, when I was going through really strong Uranus squares myself, I have a 7th house moon, and when I had Uranus both in a square to my moon and when I had Uranus on my moon, it always materialized as just it was accidents. There was all kinds of just random accidents and things that happened, and I think it was more just to get me grounded and to kind of like teach me to slow down and not be so like rattled, and really grounding out my energy. When Pluto is conjunct Uranus, especially when it's the ruler of your 8th house, you want to be careful. And when you have Pluto square the moon, because the moon is the ruler of your 4th house, you want to be careful. obviously, you know, to be honest with you, like if you just had like a very, very minor kind of like fender bump, consider yourself lucky. Like very often when I see Pluto square your conjunct Uranus and square the moon, it can materialize as like very sudden, like almost like near-death experiences, especially when it rules Pluto, right? Or when it rules your 8th house. And right now you've got the South Node on your Pluto. So it's like, I would be doing the speed limit everywhere. All of the time. I would not want to be fucking around while you're having the South Node on your Pluto, or when the South Node is on your 8th house cusp. I would just be incredibly careful and just slow down. Take your time. More than a few fender benders in my time. I believe my Aries rising. Yeah, I mean, I see it just as like a bit of a warning, and you know, like, it's kind of hard to go through a really hard Pluto square or a Pluto conjunction without there not being like people in uniform involved in some way, shape, or form. So it can also be that maybe you're a witness to an accident and you have to talk to a cop, or you're a witness to a crime and you have to talk to a cop. That's other things that can kind of happen with that Pluto-Uranus energy. Hopefully that's helpful. Good luck, stay safe. Put a St. Christopher in your car. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, Wendy, how's it going? Thank you, Heather. I see you in the chat. Hi, Katherine. I'm just looking down and I'm seeing you. Nice to see you. Let me know if you want your reading. Thank you, Natalie. You're in the queue. So we're going to take Wendy, Katherine, if you would like it, Heather Braun, and then Natalie in that order. So thank you guys for your patience. Appreciate it. Man, the energy is just like so gross today. I'm not liking this moon that's coming in opposition to Pluto. It's like meltdown city. Great time to get a reading though. I'm gonna tell you, there's people that have been calling me all day like, can I talk to you? No. No, you can't. I'll see you on my live show though. 1965. California, Westminster, California, and that was at 3:34 a.m. Oops. Westminster, California. There we go. July 16th, 65, 3:34 a.m. This is for Wendy. Wendy has questions about love. Thanks, Katherine. I'll get to you in just a second. Okay, Wendy, love would be definitely Venus, which rules your 5th house. Interesting stuff that you've got going on here right now. So your 5th house lord and your 12th house lord is going retrograde over your moon. So kind of makes me feel like there's huge opportunities for change and transformation in relationship sense, but more like the 8th house is what's hidden, right? So if you've got some kind of like romantic connection that you're concealing that is private, or if it's secret, it would relate to that. It can also be about like an individual who is connected to in business in some way, or an individual who's been like concealing their feelings and not being upfront about their feelings. It's like, it's a little messy too, because to me it seems like a little bit of like a mix or a combination between Capricorn business, 8th house, other people's money and their feelings, like messiness with money and, you know, and feelings. So kind of complex there. I don't know if you want to open up about that, but I'm wondering, like, is there somebody who you're connected to business-wise that you're trying to reconcile your feelings, but also some kind of money maybe that's owed to you? Being that Venus rules your 12th house also, it's like you're working out some painful feelings or realizations about a relationship. Venus conjunct the moon, believe it or not, is really great. So Venus would not be going back and forth on top of your moon in a sextile to Neptune, unless it's trying to almost like help you get rid of like a death grip on a situation, especially if you're staying with an emotional connection for the wrong reason. So if it's like, okay, well, you know, I'm going to keep working with them even though I'm in love with them, but they're not ready type of energy. It's like you're kind of looking at it going like, is that really good for me? Is it making me feel good? You know, are they going to pay me? What am I getting out of this? Is it all business, right? So just be mindful of that. Like, I know cap moons are capable of kind of putting feelings on the back burner, but with Venus conjunct your moon retrograde with a sextile to Saturn, it's like, why? If better romantic partnerships and better professional partnerships are on the horizon, do you want to keep settling for less than what you deserve? And you should be feeling that, okay? Here's what's interesting. And I remember saying this to you when I did your chart, and it's just coming back to me. But Jupiter in Gemini is in a sextile to your Venus and Mercury. You can't put a Venus and Leo in a corner. You can't do that. You guys need way too much attention. So it's interesting because like the more that romantic person hides, the more that you're like, no, there's something here. It's invisible. We both feel it. Let's talk about it. It's creating a yod between your Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, Moon. Okay. And it's almost like, in a way, I would say sometimes you can say too much. Like there can be too much of you acknowledging that there's something there, and you're not doing you or this person a service by saying too much. One person can be too communicative, the other person can be too kind of shut down. That's usually how I see that angle. And it's not your fault. It's just you're still experiencing Mercury and Saturn in opposition to your Venus. I would say be wary of like the traps and the pitfalls of staying with somebody because you want some financial deal to go through, and you're like, okay, I just got to keep kissing this person's ass until they pay me, and then like, you know, then we'll see how things go. And don't let somebody string you along either, making you think that a relationship is going to come along as long as you keep helping them make money. Like, fuck that. Like, don't do that. What will happen here is when Mars comes into a conjunction with your moon, you are going to be super feisty. You're also going to be super horny, or they may be horny and you're like, fuck you. But it's going to conjunct your moon, and you're going to be like, you can't be seduced by money. You can't be seduced by power. This is really important in February. So if somebody's been withholding their feelings and they haven't been paying you, and then they show up and they're like, oh, you know, I love you and this and that. And you're like, where has this been? And you're like, okay, but where's the money? And they're like, don't worry, I'll pay you. Don't get seduced by that stuff. Mars on your moon is meant for you to basically being like, are you going to pay me? Okay, great, pay me. Is this just business, or are there feelings involved? If there are feelings involved, I need you to show up. If not, then I need to cut this and I need to move on. Okay. So there's, I mean, you know, I'm going to tell it like it is, because all that cap energy is going to put so much pressure on your moon that you're more predisposed in mid-February to have temper tantrums and to kind of have an explosion and go, no, I'm not going to have this secret unsaid thing going on. You either show up or you don't, but either way, you need to pay me. So there's something about something that's being owed to you. It needs to be given to you. I feel like as Venus comes into a sextile with Jupiter, you may start to see that come up in mid-February. I also feel like it's not worth hanging around and helping somebody else make money if there is better things on the horizon for you, especially in early April, when Venus and Jupiter and Neptune and all these planets are all in your 10th house. You're making something happen, right? You're definitely really expanding your career and coming deeper into something that you're passionate about, but you may have had to get rid of somebody in order to make that happen. And I've said this to a lot of my clients. This is how 2022 is going to go. You're going to work through stuff really up until about mid-March. Yes, it's January. It doesn't feel like the new year. Okay. I don't know if anybody else is noticing this, but with all the retrogrades, everything's like fucked. So you want to think of the go time is going to be April. So right now it's a lot of reorganizing things, working through things. And I know you're used to working through things being a cap moon, but you don't want to be hidden. Okay. So now that Saturn's getting ready to leave and it'll move out of an opposition with your Venus and your Mercury, relationships can open up, very much so. And through new business partnerships with Jupiter moving into your 10th, there can also be new romantic partnerships as well, right? So you want something that's going to be real. And I think with Jupiter in opposition to Uranus and Pluto, watch out for those married men, girl, because, you know, it'll be a situation where it'll be like saying to them, you need to take the bandage off. Okay, I don't care if it disrupts your home. I don't care if you have to leave your wife. I don't care if you're going through a divorce. I don't care if you have to pay them off. I don't care if you have to relocate. Make the change. And it's going to bring up a lot for you emotionally. Jupiter going into Pisces, making that opposition to Uranus and Pluto. If you've been compounding and holding back your feelings and not talking about it, it's going to implode. Okay, so just be mindful of that. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know. Come back. Let me know what happens in March. Hey, Phoenix, how's it going? Let me know. I'm happy to do your reading if you would like that. I'll add Katherine and let me know if you want that. Happy birthday! What a big day. So many transits happening on your birthday. Okay, so let's go and pop in and let's see. We'll do Katherine and just so I don't forget, Katherine, Heather, and Natalia. Let me see who popped in here. Thank you guys for your patience. Okay, so it'll be Katherine, Heather, Susan, Rachel, all the regulars. Hey guys, thank you, appreciate it. Thanks for your patience. All right, Phoenix, add you to my list. You're so welcome, Wendy. Good luck. Because we've got a number of people that are in the queue. We're going to call last call for readings here pretty soon because this is probably going to go a little bit longer. All right, so let me plug in your info, Katherine. $11:22:67. And that was at 10:30 p.m. Anything in particular you would like to know, Katherine, let me know. Just woke up with 2 kittens in the bed. Thank you. Thanks, VS. Appreciate it. I'll add you to the queue. Let me know what you have questions about now that I've got your chart up. Thank you guys for your patience. You're welcome. Oh boy, Katherine. All of these retrogrades on your Mars. Ah! Lots of emotional stuff coming up, lots of clearing. I mean, listen, you know, you have so much stuff going on that's meant to be promoting healing right now. It's wild. I was talking a little bit about the full moon that we're having in a couple of days. It'll be, well, where you are tomorrow. That's going to be at 26, 27 degrees. It's in opposition to Pluto. Pluto is in your 6th house. It's a lot of emotional clearing and purging. You may get this sudden, almost like your body might start purging and clearing things, okay? And it can happen in a very Pluto way. So it can be either like emotional eruptions and just kind of like, ah! Or it can be about you feeling like you need to detox and you need to purge and you need to remove bad emotional habits. It can be about making cuts and changes in your diet. It can be about clearing out any illness, any virus, any infections, anything like that. This is a very, very potent full moon because it's literally on your 6th and 12th house axis. So it's also like all of this buildup of any emotional stuff that you're finally kind of clearing and either pushing through your digestive tract, you're pushing through your bowels. Like, take it easy, drink a lot of water, just, you know, breathe, because the next couple of days can feel like you're detoxifying. Especially with now the South Node in conjunction to your Sun. I remember talking to you about this, I think maybe like a month or 2 ago, that this was just going to be a period of kind of being present and releasing. The more kind of third dimensional things that can start happening is that you start kind of getting like the cleaning bug, and suddenly you want to clear, you know, lots of things from your home. You're wanting to declutter, you're wanting to clean up, you're wanting to organize, give things away, or you're just really kind of feeling like there's a lot of catharsis in finally letting things go. Things that were maybe affecting your ego, right? Holy shit, I just finished up many antibiotics, need a detox. Okay. Supplements relating to like charcoal, supplements relating to cleaning out the bowels. Yeah, anything in regards to detoxification. I think like lots of water also. You know, we want to use herbs and remedies that are going to be purging in a more kind of gentle way that's going to make you feel supported. Some people I've just noticed that I've been talking to are getting really extreme with this. It's like, I'm selling everything in my house, or I'm, you know, completely, you know, kicking everything and becoming a vegan. Like there's an extremism to this. I think of like rebalancing the good biotics in your stomach and like flora. So maybe like things like taking pre or postbiotics can kind of helpful in kind of getting this kind of balanced out in a way. And yeah, clearing that stuff out, because you know, you are more predisposed right now with the South Node on your Sun and also on your Neptune to having lower energy levels, to being more likely to fall victim to having issues with viruses. This clears out a lot for you by about early March. Baths can be really helpful, lots of liquids. I also have Neptune in the 4th, and it's funny, when I had the South Node go through Neptune, my Neptune is in opposition to Jupiter, so it may not manifest the same way as you, but still, I was like in another country and I got very sick. It was at the end of 2019 and I was in the UK for about a month, and it was probably the sickest I've ever been. I'm convinced I had COVID, but that's neither here nor there. So sick I couldn't get out of bed. So sick I couldn't feed myself. So sick I couldn't, you know, get anything done. South Node Neptune. Clearing out sickness, illness, isolation. Little did I know, I had lines that went through that part of the world, and it was like there was this emotional catharsis that was happening in just being sick and releasing it and like letting somebody else take care of me and being kind of homebound. For Scorpio, because it has to deal with your Mars, it's like you're literally working old heartbreak, you're working men out of your body, out of your system, out of your digestive tract. So I would say like lean into all of that Scorpio Capricorn energy. The energy is going to build up to where your health is better and you've really kicked a virus, you've really kicked a bad habit, or you've really kicked a tendency to overwork or issues with disorganization. So you're feeling actually better by the time we get to about mid-March, okay? So take it easy on yourself. When the South Node leaves Neptune, I get the vibe that it's just going to get so much easier. Your body will be less prone to illness, things like that. The other thing that I would say is that when the South Node is on your Sun, being that the Sun is your chart ruler, there can still be this energy of a man being removed from your life, okay? So it can be like a male romantic figure, a father figure, a grandparent. It can be a landlord, something like that. I get the feeling because your Sun is at a 29, it's like all the psychic release of finally removing somebody who you had some kind of romantic entanglement from your life, and something that's going on that's like gonna clear this feeling of being tied to them and like being stuck to them, and like maybe no longer like feeling all of these like emotions because you guys had some kind of like connection, and like finally you feel like you broke the psychic bounds in some way, right? So there's something like that that can kind of get cleared out for you as well. All the sextiles that are happening also to your Pluto-Uranus, you got all these planets in your 6th house. I would say a lot of this is about being like supported in some way, shape, or form also by your diet. So herbs and things also can kind of help clear a lot of this stuff out. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know. Feel better. Glad to hear that you're moving and shaking and yeah, doing the detoxing. After going through a bunch of antibiotics, your body is just like all out of whack, right? All right, so let's go ahead and shift over to Phoenix. Happy birthday, Phoenix! Ooh, okay. Can you give me your information again, Phoenix? Oh, I see it up here, never mind. Thank you, thank you. So 11573. Do you have anything in particular you would like to know? Or anything you want me to look into? 12:40 a.m. What was the city? Do you mind letting me know, Phoenix? Blowing trumpets reminds me of like the judgment card. You know, it's like, I made the decision. I kicked that person out of my life. Rejoice. Your new jobs. Okay. Let me know the city. I will plug that in for you. Got it. There we go. Appreciate that. Okay. Question about your new jobs. Plural. Oh, man. That deals with your sun, you know, and obviously, happy birthday to you. Pluto is moving off of your sun. It's been a profound year or two period of change. You know, here's the thing. Mercury is going retrograde back and forth over, you know, in conjunction both to your IC and Pluto. So in regards to your 3 jobs, I wonder, do you have to relocate for anything? Is there one that you can do from home? Is there one that makes sense that you relate to more like emotionally? You can, if you want to let me know, you know, being that Pluto is over your sun and Mercury is going retrograde, what is your goal? Which one's going to give you the most control? Which one are you going to move up within that job faster? Are you doing any home care? Is there anything relating to real estate? Is there anything going on like that? Right? Let me know. But Sun being the ruler of the 10th and it's in the 4th, I moved to this new location. Okay, cool. So, I mean, a lot of this is just adjusting, you know, it's adjusting. It's also networking. And with Mercury, which rules friends, it also rules your goals and changes in transformation. Perhaps maybe this new location that you've moved to is giving you the opportunity to kind of reevaluate, what are my goals? What money do I want to make? Do I like living here? Do I want to stay here? What's the cost of living here? You know, that kind of stuff, right? But if you left San Francisco, I imagine that just about anywhere else in the country is affordable, depending on where you live. Definitely going to be a little bit more affordable. East Bay, okay? So I would say to you, a lot of this is like also adjusting and getting to know your surroundings and your neighborhood, because Mercury is going retrograde in your 3rd. It's not just because you just moved. Your chart seems to scream you're still organizing and you're still unpacking, or you're still kind of getting accustomed to knowing where things are. So when Mercury retrogrades from your 4th into your 3rd during your Mercury retrograde, during your birthday, it's like there's this reimagining of who am I? What are my goals? What is my purpose? Why am I here? This energy is not going to kind of let off until the end of February, beginning of March. So it may make you feel like it's taking you about that long to get to know your neighborhood, learning how to communicate with people at work, remembering people's names, getting with the schedule of things, knowing where, you know, the grocery store is, and starting to meet your neighbors. Like, it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to go very slow for a lot of this stuff to happen. But now Pluto's leaving your sun, so that's awesome, because you went through the Pluto transformation of where you're living because of your job, right? Now, two, the other thing I would say is that now you're going to start seeing Jupiter coming into a sextile with your sun. So that also makes me feel like your social life this spring, possibly even your love life or dating life or anything like that, can open up. Yeah, I work and live in one area or market. If you want to be closer to home, so where is home? Because if you were born in the Philippines, the 4th house can represent, you know, wanting to be closer to family or what feels like home. Where is home for you? Just a heads up, like, we're just my 2 cents. In a short period of time, okay, like what you're going to see here pretty soon, within about 2.5 years, Pluto is going to come into a conjunction with your IC, the most southern part of your chart. And that always materializes as a profound shift and a change in regards to where you're living, okay? Especially Placidus. For me, like I think of when Pluto crossed my IC and I moved from where I had lived my whole life, like 14, 15 years, to a completely new state in a different city, which ultimately ended up being really good for me, and it ended up feeling like home. So being that you're a Scorpio rising chart, Pluto rules your chart. When Pluto, you know, finally ingresses into Aquarius over the next 1.5 to 2 years, your definition of home is going to change, right? Your home will change. You're going to either relocate and go somewhere else, or you're going to end up moving into a new home, or you're going to end up buying a place that you're going to renovate. There's going to be perhaps maybe shifts revolving around inheritance and things going on in your family. So just a heads up. So I'm convinced wherever you are, you're not going to be there for very long. That's just what I think. I also look at, Saturn eventually, when it enters into Pisces, coming into a square also in about 2 years' time with your natal Saturn. So, you know, there is change that's coming. I would say looking at it in a positive sense is that you've got Venus and Mars and all these planets coming into conjunction with your Jupiter and your Sun. I'm wondering what you can bring into your home that's going to remind you actually of of home. So whether it's artwork or pictures of cities or other things, like there's stuff like that that's going on that makes me feel like you can redecorate the home and make it feel more homely to kind of get through for the time being, right? And if you just recently moved with a Venus retrograde and a Mercury retrograde happening in your 3rd and your 4th house, it's going to take time for you to settle in and feel like home. So don't be super hard on yourself. Don't be like really negative Nancy. Like give yourself a little bit of time to adjust. And I think that you might actually find that you like it, especially when Venus goes direct and it conjuncts your Jupiter and also conjuncts your Sun. If it's like you being able to go and visit what you consider to be home is possible. You know, short distance trips can be nice in the 3rd house, so it can give you a little bit of an opportunity to go and do that, just to kind of like, you know, pass a little bit of time. I also know that with eclipses happening on your moon in a trine to your Sun, and like Venus and all these planets are coming into your 7th house, your potential future love life is very active here soon. It's going to be like April, May, June. There's some really nice things that start kind of setting up for you. Are men finding me intimidating because I achieved a lot of things in 2021? Not necessarily. I love a Taurus moon, and Taurus moon in the 7th house makes me feel like you're going to start kind of feeling the love a little bit more for partners. Actually, the eclipse was on your moon, so that tells me you're going to meet a guy who probably either lives in another city or somebody who's anticipating or planning on a move further away, and you might start talking to this person as early as this spring. Being that Taurus is on your descendant, ruled by Venus, and Venus is in the 3rd, I mean, Jupiter's sextiling your Venus girl. You can't really go wrong. Right now, it's about holding tight. You'll find that from about March through the summer, there's going to be much more communications with people. I'm just wondering if you're going to meet somebody who lives in a different part of town or in another area, or if there's going to be a lot of back and forth that you're having just in terms of communicating and kind of talking to them as you're getting to know them, you know? But great aspects to be having for your birthday, to be honest with you. And Mercury square Uranus, today is a day where there's just kind of like a lot of static in the air with communication and ideas and making changes. It's at a 10, so it's also a lot of like, do I like what I'm doing business-wise? Do I want to keep being here? Does this satisfy me, right? And your birthday, you know, is within a short period of time of a full moon. So being that it's about 48 hours away from a full moon and it's your birthday, it's going to represent this polarity between your career changing and also, things changing in relation to your home life. So all this whole next year is going to feel like a full moon. My recommendation is go and look at your annual perfections. So depending on what age you are, go and find which annual perfection year you're in. That's going to give you more insight as to like what the next year will have in store, or maybe even doing like a solar return report. That can be something else you can do to give you more insight as to what's going to happen. But hooray, Pluto is off of your Sun. So it's very exciting. Let the dust settle a little bit. I think you're going to be feeling a little bit better. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, so we've got Heather, Susan, and Rachel. I know we called last call. So if you guys did not get in, no worries. You can catch me next time. And then we also got Vianney. So just a heads up, guys, anybody who makes a donation after that, we're going to have to send it back just for the sake of time. Okay. So let's take a look. Pull up Susan. Uh, 9883. $9:15 a.m. And this was in Mexico City. Oh, so I'm reading this now. This isn't you. This is your ex. Okay. Is my ex's birthday. Will he move cities this or next year? He closed on a place. He also got married. When will they divorce? That's a lot of questions, girl. Let's see. Let's just take a look at what's going on with this chart. Don't worry, BS. You are the last one. You got in. Oh, man. Oh, man. I'm going to preface a lot of the questions that you asked me with this because morally and ethically, I kind of have to. Heather, I didn't skip you. Don't worry. I see you. People have free will. Okay? So astrologers aren't God. We can look at a chart. We can make predictions. But at the end of the day, people have free will. So when we look at transits and things that are happening, are those themes likely to come up? Yes. But at the end of the day, like, we're here to kind of supersede our astrological placements. So I'll say that. This person's a Libra rising. And being that they are a Venus-ruled chart, it is very, very, very tricky in their lives right now because honestly, there's like a lot of disharmony going on in relationships within the home. So Libra risings are definitely having lots of transitions when it comes to their home life, their relationships and things like that, and whether or not they're happy with where they're living, whether that's the people they're living with or the city that they're living in general, okay? So you're asking questions about, well, he closed on something, is he going to move, things like that. Will he move cities this year or the end of next year? The truth is that larger moves are going to be a connection between Mercury and Neptune. Excuse me, Mercury and Jupiter, because far away moves is going to be Mercury, 9th house, and he has it in his 12th. And then Jupiter, which is going to be making the decision to move, is coming into his 6th. However, he's got Mercury square Neptune, and that tells me he gets confused, he doesn't know what he wants, he withdraws, whatever. So in this next year, both Jupiter as well as Neptune is going to square his natal Neptune in the 3rd, which is about moving, and oppose his natal Mercury, which tells me something else is going to show up. He's going to go where there's work, right? That's what's likely to happen. So if he closed on a place, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be moving. A lot of it's going to depend on his workflow, his schedule, where he can be working, whether or not travel is going to facilitate him, being able to go back and forth, that kind of stuff. Right now, with some of the other transits, I would be more focused on what's actually going on with his relationship and less on whether he's moving or things like that. Because for a Libra rising chart right now, it's a lot of like, do I want to keep living where I'm living? Do I want to be staying with the person that I'm staying with, right? So this is where I'm going to shift gears and talk a little bit about the relationship stuff. He has free will. Pluto has moved into his 4th house, so definitely there's huge transformations in his home life. He has new goals. Maybe he feels like he's living with somebody that's toxic, that's Pluto, or who's limiting, or just like not easy to get along with. And he's one of those people born in 83 who has Saturn and Pluto conjunct in his 1st house. The problem isn't necessarily completely the spouse. He's part of the problem. So when Pluto moves to square natal Pluto and Saturn, it's like, is he unwilling to commit to the responsibility of the home life? Is he not doing what he needs to be doing emotionally to connect with the partner, right? Because Pluto square Pluto is a period of time when you're coming up to 40 where you have to assess, you know, am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? Can I keep the same shit? Blah, blah, blah. Many people I've seen who have, from 1983 to 1984, who have Pluto in the late degrees of Libra, many of them get divorced. I hate to say that. And they had been on the brinks of it with Saturn and Pluto making squares in the last year and a half. I'm wondering if he's made the decision to close on the house, and there's like a lot of going back and forth. That's like, do I make the escape and go by myself and like end the relationship, or do I bring this person with me? The truth is that if he's not moving in March, I see so much stress in relationships for him happening in March, relating to the home base, that it makes me wonder if he's going to be like, you know what, I don't know if I can do this and I need a way out. And he may start feeling that way in March, April, when Saturn and Mars trine his Pluto. And it may be that there's somebody leaving him. It's hard to say. That's possible because it's all going to trine his Pluto. Somebody's going to be like, this is too much. There's so much going on. I can't do this. Like, I'm out. And then the nodes will square Saturn. So he does have to make a decision about his emotions, his home life, all of that stuff in end of March going into April. Now, another period of time when he could be moving or making plans about moving, I think would actually happen when Mercury's going retrograde at the end of May going into June in Gemini, his whole sign 9th house. But it'll also retrograde from his 8th into his 7th. So they just got married 3 weeks ago under Venus retrograde. So you're saying they may divorce this year. Oh, fuck. Probably one of the worst times a Libra rising could get married was 3 weeks ago, right? You know, the more that I look at this, it's like if he got married during a Venus retrograde, then he is for a rude awakening, because it's not just learning how to get married, getting married and learning how to be in a relationship. That's not what this is. It's that he got married under a really difficult transit. So that means he basically is going to have, I'll go to right now. Let's say he got married at, you know, the end of December. He got married while Venus was retrograde, squaring his Pluto. I would give it probably until the spring for him to move, but there's no guarantee that the relationship is going to stick. I don't know. I'd have to see the marriage chart, to be honest with you. I'm not going to, you know, speculate. I will tell you that being that Mars rules his 7th house, Saturn's coming into an opposition with his Mars and also his Venus, which means he's definitely going to try to throw on the brakes when it comes to like having kids and things like that. He's definitely going to take his time. And maybe that's smart if he is having issues. But a move, like actually moving, you know, if he's not doing this in March, April, then it's looking like May, June. But for a Libra rising chart, Venus retrograde conjunct Pluto in the 4th and then a Mercury retrograde in the 7th. I mean, if Libra risings are having issues right now, they're looking at separation and divorce in May, June, you know, possibly by the summer. I know that sounds crazy, but that could happen when Saturn squares the nodes and Saturn squares Uranus. So he's definitely going to have a particularly like rocky go. And part of this to me seems more like the person who he's living with is not going to be totally thrilled with the dynamic of just what's going on, right? And how he's behaving and how he's acting, especially when Mars and Uranus go into the 7th house. Because you have to remember, all of this is squaring Pluto. He's unwilling to change. He's unwilling to merge, or there's some conflicts over investments, money, resources, how they're spending money. Now, relationships usually die in the 6th house, which in his case is Neptune. So what also is going to be happening over the next year or two is that Saturn's going to come into an opposition with his Mercury, and Neptune's going to come into an opposition with his Mercury. And I would say another turning point that could be major pivotal moments where there's breakdown in the marriage would be in spring of 2025, when Saturn and Neptune oppose his Mercury, and Neptune is there as well. So it's like, you know, there's no guarantee in general. There's always windows where relationships can close, but to me that looks even more challenging to be honest with you. If he can get through this period, the next 3 months, he'll maybe move, but it might be like putting a bandage on situations. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. And also the state of his Mars. He's got Lilith in opposition to his Mars and Ceres in opposition to his Mars. So he may have promised somebody the world, gotten married, moved in with them, telling them they're going to have a life, have a family, everything's great, but he's still acting kind of selfishly. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. But yeah, I think Pluto right now into a square, it's showing him where he's going to have a very, very uncomfortable home life for the next month or two if either he or his spouse are unwilling to change. Yeah. But, you know, I would just say that 7th house is all relationships and partnerships in general, right? People who he's married to, it's the gateway for relationships. So in a way, even you are part of this because you have Mars in his 10th house in opposition to Lilith. So whether you're the person waiting for him to get divorced or you're the person who's in a relationship with him, it does seem to be like there's always external forces that are wanting separation or wanting him to not be with people, right? Other people get involved. So be careful putting that energy out there. I'm not judging you. But I've seen a lot of issues with Lilith in opposition to Venus or in opposition to Mars, especially when it rules, where it's like putting that out there, you know, like the universe will handle it. If these two are going to go round and round, let them go round and round. And also, like, I'm sorry, but a guy who's got Mars and Venus in the 10th house, it's like a very machismo energy. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I mean, Uranus is squaring all of that. So it's like, this may be a guy who gets married, but he's still reluctant to commit or settle down. And it doesn't necessarily pay to be the other person or the person waiting. This guy's got a lot to work through in this lifetime. Uranus is still yet to square his Venus. So actually, to be honest with you, like that woman's gonna put him through it the next couple years, you know, trying to get him to change. Leopard can't change his spots. Let me know how it goes. All right, Heather, let's go ahead and move on to you. 8/12/85. 3:06 p.m. And that was in Temple, Texas. And the question is, any transits I should be looking forward to? Good question. Let's take a look. All right, so, well, yeah, actually, you've got a lot of stuff kind of happening here. Let's talk about Jupiter, because Jupiter's your chart ruler, Sag rising. You just finished this last year of your Jupiter return, so that's always nice, although it was kind of peppered with Saturn. Great day to get a reading. Look at your chart. You've got Mercury stationing retrograde on top of your Jupiter. So this is about getting some kind of positive advice or information, checking in. Mercury can be readings. Mercury can be like intuition, things like that. So Mercury's going retrograde over your Jupiter, which is helping you kind of find a sense of direction when it comes to new career opportunities, new exciting information and good news regarding meetings, business, stuff like that, like positive comments that you may also be getting from bosses or superiors. Mercury also rules your 7th house, so it's like almost like your mind is starting to shift and you're becoming more optimistic about the future of also just partnering with people in general, or maybe even romantic partners. That's something else that I see happening. The fact that Jupiter is receiving this retrograde in your chart makes me think that maybe you're thinking about your daily routines and like making changes. So it can be like, do I want to get a new car? Do I want to get a new lease? Do I want to get a new bicycle, right? Things that have to do with the 3rd house. It can also be, let me do some research before I make a new computer purchase, a new software purchase, a new cell phone or a new tablet. Don't buy anything right now, do your research. But I almost wonder, are you thinking about moving? Are you thinking about looking at other neighborhoods or other places? Because Mercury turning retrograde on that makes me feel like you might be thinking about that. If not, there might be like new software and technologies and things coming into work. So if you work for other people, there can be like new monitors and computers and things coming in. If not, it can be that you're like, okay, what do I need to get that can help me feel better organized and more on task? And do I need to get a digital planner? Do I need to get some new kind of technology just to help me be more efficient and get the job done? If you have your own website or anything like that, it's like a lot of like reworking things right now. So let me know if any of that stuff applies. Another cool Jupiter transit that you have happening is Jupiter's getting ready to go into your 4th house. So that's pretty significant. That also is an indication that the home or the family is going to expand in some way, or that maybe your home is going to get bigger, or you're looking for a new home or property, or family or siblings and people are trying to come and visit you. I've been trying to find a house for over a year with my boyfriend and I. Okay, cool. So to me, I think part of Mercury going retrograde over your Jupiter is about you looking in other areas, looking at other websites and other places which you could find a house, right? So expand your search, look in other areas. There might be stuff that's popping up. You might find something that you didn't see before. I also feel like when Mercury comes back and it conjuncts Jupiter here, it's also a lot of reassessing your budget, what you can afford. When Mercury comes back and conjuncts Jupiter, you may actually find something right around the end of February, like the 23rd. You may also find, like physically go and look at something around March 2nd. And I'm liking all of the transits, which kind of suggests like you may actually be looking at moving or whatever as early as the end of March, when Mercury and Jupiter and the Sun and Neptune are all in your 4th, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's magical and it has a pool or a hot tub or a fountain or it's near a lake or there's something like that. And then Mars and Venus are going to sit on your Jupiter. So it's just adapting to a new space, right? So actually like keep up the home search. I think you're going to find something. I hate budgets. There's a lot of reevaluating, like especially when Mercury goes retrograde into your 2nd house. It can be like, you know, what are our non-negotiables? Like how much can we spend? You know, where do we stand on things? Does it make sense to get something older and like renovate and flip, things like that? And doubles, you see a lot of doubles in the 3rd house. You might find 2 options, 2 places, 2 different places that you want to look at. Something else I would say is that when Venus comes into conjunction with Jupiter and Mars is in your 4th, I would give it until about maybe May, June for all of these things to be happening, right? So there's something like that that's kind of going on there that, you know, you might find that everything's coming together very beautifully and aesthetically and you're decorating by about May. That's another way that this can kind of happen, right? Yeah, it's worth waiting for. It's definitely worth waiting for. And I would say bring in like lots of art or like water elements. So like get an aquarium or put up like all kinds of paintings, like things like that in your 4th house. It's going to be aesthetically very pleasing once it starts making the sextiles also to Pluto. Very spiritual. You might have like a little spiritual area in your house or like a little altar space or something like that. That's actually really nice. Maria says, I feel like everyone needs to wait till 2022. I wish I could go to sleep and wake up in March, to be honest with you. I'm over the transits. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. I mean, I definitely think that you're going to find something. I just think the Mercury retrograde stationing on your Jupiter is like, where else could I look? And like, what is my vision? Here's an idea. Create a vision board, right? Create a vision board. Maybe do that around the new moon that's coming in Aquarius. So that'll be in your 3rd house. I did this once. I like literally like made a list of everything that I wanted. And it was so funny. I made a list. I kind of drew a picture and everything. This is like 8 years ago. And then I went to move and sign a lease and then the lease fell through. And I was so pissed because I was like, what the hell? Like it was 2 days before I move. Drive around, end up finding a place, go and look at it. And no joke, it was literally the place that I drew a picture of. And I was laughing because I was like, of course I got pissed off that, you know, the lease didn't fall, that it fell through. I went back to the picture and the vision board that I created for the house that I was manifesting and I opened it up and it had everything I listed and all kinds of things that I drew literally within the space that I ended up finding. So I would actually say the new moon, because it's so close to your Jupiter around the 31st, makes me feel like you've had time to talk to your partner and communicate and express what it is that you guys want. You can sit down on vision board, do that right around the 31st, and you'll be surprised like what actually manifests when Mars and Venus come through those degrees in conjunct your Jupiter. You have to. The universe they need to know what it is that you're manifesting. So you have to give them some sense of direction, you know? Let me know if you find it. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, so we've got Rachel and then VS. 5484. How you doing, Rachel? Thank you for your patience. 2:30 p.m. And that's in Eureka. I love it up there. You're welcome. Okay, so Rachel, 5484, 2:30 p.m. exact. How's love looking this year? Still feeling emotionally attached, but trying to remain open. Well, I like that. I'm also liking that Venus is coming into conjunction in about a day or two with your Jupiter. And it's actually going to station right around there, okay? So like, this is the silver lining period that I was kind of talking to you about, where you're going to start to kind of get over the hump. Certainly like the midway point to the Venus retrograde in this last week kind of came up. So there's like a lot of breakthroughs that are happening. But Venus conjunct Jupiter here is beautiful, especially because it's in a trine to your sun. So it's romantic, it's dreamy, it's creative, it's whimsical. These are the positive sides when you see Venus trine your sun. The sun rules your 12th house, so it can be about dreaming about the future, dreaming about what a future relationship looks like, where you would go on trips with people, what your wedding would look like. I know it sounds sappy, but I mean, literally, that's what this is. I also feel like when Mars shows up, that may materialize as like a person presenting themselves and being like, hi, here I am. Somewhere around February 5th through, I would say, the 12th. That's a really nice window. And then again, when the sun comes into your 7th house and it gets close to Jupiter. So it's even looking even better at the end of February. Perhaps maybe even a new romantic kind of sexual partner. 5th house feels more like casual, getting to know somebody, having fun, going out and doing things, maybe sleeping with them. But more relationship building happens in the 7th. So I'm not saying somebody couldn't, somebody couldn't show up. I mean, somebody definitely could show up around the end of February. The heartbreak stuff you're still working through, right? Because, you still have aspects that are happening to Pluto, so it's kind of like still helping you communicate and express. I feel like you're going to be a lot more vulnerable in February, and I feel like people who you're meeting and who you're talking to, you might be just super upfront. It's like, look, I'm still moving through getting over something or letting something go or healing from something, right? And Uranus is coming into conjunction with your sun again. That's fun. Uranus conjunct your sun in opposition to Saturn. It's all of the kind of static and like the healing that needs to happen as a result of a separation with another person, and how you actually learn to think differently about separations, and you may come out of it because of the square to Saturn. That's like, it's not that they left me, I left them, and that they weren't good for me. And I know that the universe removed them for me, so that way I could do the healing. So once I do the healing, I know that I'm not going to be in the patterns of seeking relationships with people who keep me at a distance, and they hide me, or they don't communicate well with me, or they don't really tell me, or they can't open their heart the way that I can, right? That's how I kind of see Saturn in your 6th square Saturn, and also your sun and Uranus on your sun. So, you can be in a relationship with somebody and feel super lonely, but physically you have that partnership. And so something that I would say to you is that it's almost better to be alone and be healthy and be working on yourself until somebody comes in who's a vibrational match, than being in a relationship for the sake of being in a relationship and then getting your heart broken because you're kind of finding out that they aren't who you thought they were. right? Because that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from your chart. That's kind of happened intermittently the last year or two. And it may be that you're still working on fully letting somebody go as well, right? But Jupiter, I think, coming into Pisces and squaring your natal Uranus is going to expedite and kind of like pick up the pace of the healing and kind of get you going with doing that. There we go. A little bit more quickly. I also feel like Saturn transits can be very helpful. So, Saturn being in a square to your sun is helping you like learn new patterns and new mannerisms. So I would say like a lot of this is like reprogramming and like learning to live your life and like figuring out a schedule outside of being in a relationship, figuring out how to be in a schedule and learning to not build your life around someone else. It's almost like if a relationship comes in, they are the icing on the relationship cake, right? So, or the life cake, right? So it's like, okay, if a relationship comes in, awesome. I welcome that. I'm super stoked, but it's not going to make or break me. I need to be complete and whole and have a healthy routine and have a way of moving through life with or without somebody else. So when Jupiter comes in, I also think it's really important for you to have done the healing when Jupiter comes into your 7th, because so many Virgo risings are going to move into the potential of really being able to enter into a very romantic, very spiritual marriage potential period of time. But if you have not cleared out the past, it's going to make it harder for you to fully go into that, if that makes sense. Capricorn energy is slow, right? Taurus is slow too, but Capricorn energy is really slow because it's not slow like Taurus because it takes their time. It's slow because it wants to really make sure it gets the job done, right? It's very meticulous. So it's like, okay, did we do this? Did we do that? Did we do this? And how is this working? So in a way, it's like you're having to do all of the heavy lifting and all of the work on yourself, 5th house, on your heart, 5th house, on your emotions, Jupiter. And what you learn about yourself and how you learn through the process of loving yourself, focusing on yourself, reminding yourself of all of the good things and why you're amazing and why you're special and why you're worthy, right? So Venus is also not just conjunct your Jupiter, but it's sextile your Saturn. So one thing to kind of move through this is like positive words of affirmation. Maybe it's like writing a love letter to yourself. Maybe it's speaking kindly to yourself in the mirror. Like the body is made up of water, right? And water is receptive. It's therapeutic. It's healing. So if you can get into a regular flow of clearing your body's energy, drinking lots of water, taking baths, nourishing yourself, saying kind things to yourself in the mirror, then naturally, because you've got Jupiter and Neptune in your 7th, you're going to find somebody who is going to see that energy in you, and it's going to be like a magnet. You're just going to bring somebody in very quickly who's also going to see you, but you have to believe that about yourself first. You have to give that to yourself first. This isn't a pep talk. It's literally just the way that your chart is working. Not only that, but Jupiter will also start sextiling your sun, which is really wonderful because it tells me that you're going to meet people who are also interested in, let's make long-term plans and where would you want to live and do you see yourself getting married and, would you want this and would you want to have kids? I mean, like all kinds of things that really start to kind of open up. And maybe then it's when you start to kind of realize that certain people were kind of either removed from your life or kept at a distance because they weren't ready, because it was supposed to be a lesson and it wasn't supposed to be the person you were supposed to be with, all in preparation for who you end up with. Relationships are meant to be kind of the training and testing grounds for getting to know what you do and what you do not like, and also getting to know yourself. So maybe on the other side of this, you'll have some kind of appreciation for okay, yeah, maybe there's a reason why they left in a way. And when something else better comes through, which inevitably it will with the Jupiter transit in your 7th, that's like a year of a man buffet. You'll kind of go, okay, now it makes sense, right? You were holding yourself back from those blessings. Not to mention the fact that Jupiter rules your 4th house. It's in your 7th of relationships. It's trining all your planets in the 3rd. Time is not real. If you've spent 2 years pining over somebody who broke your heart, I mean, imagine, yourself 6 months from now, and 6 months from now in a relationship, and the relationship is healthy and you're not fixated on all the time that you lost. You're focused on being present now and what you're building with that person, right? So don't think so much about time, because you can, I'm not saying you can get over it when you want, but It's more that you're still kind of working through some ego issues relating to why that didn't work out, and becoming less focused on whether or not they're going to come back, or whether or not they really loved you, or whether or not they're happy and if they've moved on, and more focused on your happiness, if that makes sense. I promise you, March is going to come and you're going to be like, I feel so much better. That's what I'm kind of seeing in this chart, but it does take time. So Capricorn is saying, you know, do the work, really work all of this stuff out and rework the way that you're thinking and communicating and viewing yourself, right? Hopefully that's helpful. And last but not least, we have VS, who has been very patient. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. So let me pull that up. Curious what jumps out at you the most. 421.93. And that was at 12:32 a.m. And that was in Anaheim. Okay, so that gives you a 421.93. Okay. That gives you a Cap rising, Sun in Taurus, and Moon in Aries. Your question is whatever sticks, whatever jumps out at me. Scheduling a Saturn returns reading soon. Cool. Oh wow, I didn't even know there was a tsunami warning. Was that about like somebody was talking to me about some underwater volcano or something? Or was there, my transits have been crazy. I'm like living under a rock. I'm just working and surviving right now. But yeah, let me know. I don't feel good being right about that, but I'm not surprised. I wonder what happened. Okay, so what jumps out at me the most? How about the fact that Venus has been retrograding really close to Pluto in a square with your moon? That seems a little uncomfortable right now. And Venus going retrograde in your first house, which is the traditional ruler of your 10th, and it's been going back and forth over your natal Uranus square the moon. Feelings in regards to security and relationships. So it's highlighting your natal second house and your 7th house, values in relationships. So it's in a retrograde motion, conjunct Uranus, square your moon, and also oppose your Mars. Lots of feelings. Has there been conflict or things going on, either like with family, with where you're living, or with partnerships and relationships from the past? My moon's in Aries too. We have the same moon. Mine's 22 degrees, so our moons are very similar. Different house, but very similar. And that's a very complex T-square you're going through, that you've been going through. Pluto square the moon brings up all kinds of intense feelings and things relating to emotional shifts and how you're relating to family or women in general. But being that the moon's in your 3rd house, like, has there been conflicts with like aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, neighbors, you know, female roommates? Is there anything like that going on? 4 major friendships in this last year. So really the Mercury retrograde and the Venus retrograde is just how you're responding to that, right? And kind of like how your body is like settling into like not constantly having that drama or that back and forth that's going on. Pluto in opposition to your Mars is not fun. And that full moon is right on your Mars, ruler of the 4th house. Heads up, the next 48 hours is quite intense with that lunation. And full moons are completions. I'm sorry to hear you lost your grandma. Squares to the 7th house ruler. When I had Pluto squaring my 7th house ruler, or Pluto was, squaring my moon, which was in my 7th house, similar energy. It was off and on all year, and then finally my grandma did pass this last year. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Pluto square the moon, which rules your 7th house, but now it's Pluto in opposition to Mars. So watch for just driving slow, taking your time. You know, don't get into any arguments with family members or anybody this week in regards to emotions and feelings. Cardinal squares initiate conflict. So that's kind of building in your chart right now. And it's kind of like, I would say, pick your battles. I would say that's any Aries moon, but when Pluto square your moon and there's a full moon like this, lots of emotions are coming up. And I would say walking to release any tension, staying active, to me seems very important. You know, clearing a lot of that stuff out. Breath work, walking, having an outlet. 3rd house is kind of moving around, staying moving. But this can also be a full moon that brings up conversations relating to certain family members moving or making changes in their home base or how they're feeling. I would really look into transit Pluto in opposition to your Mars. That's big. That tells me that somebody's moving in or out of your house or in or out of the family, leaving the family, something like that. Mercury is a part of this. So I don't know if you're thinking about a move or whether or not you need to have somebody join forces with you and help you communicate with somebody if there's lots of drama going on. Aries moons like to fight, but we get over it pretty quickly. I think the challenge is that your moon squares Uranus. So it tells me that you have conflict with either roommates or people in the family, but it's not really you that's provoking them. It's other people that are starting it, and it's creating conflict between you and others, right? Pluto opposed Mars is bullying, so you've got that happening right now. So it's females that are almost like bullying you, trying to see if you're gonna like stand up for yourself, right? But I'm actually kind of feeling like there could be more conflict even because Mars rules your 11th house with friends. So there can be this like, well, we had a falling out. Do I talk to them? Do I reach back out to them? Is there still a friendship there? Can we hash this out? Be careful. Something like that makes me feel like it could be very challenging for you. And yeah, your Saturn return is going to really kick into high gear later this year. Definitely a time that maybe a good time. I mean, it's always a good time if you're approaching your Saturn's return, even though your Saturn return isn't going to be conjunct for a little bit. You're going to get a little piece of the, an idea of what's happening as the nodes square your Saturn, and then Mars and Saturn and Venus all sit on your natal Saturn. Definitely like March, April, it's about like self-esteem, money, resources, things like that, like learning how to like stand up for yourself and like, really kind of hone in on your finances and your own personal talents. And you can feel like the belt of Saturn kind of tightening resources in a way, Yeah. But I would say maybe end of March, beginning of April is a good time to get a reading for your Saturn return. So hopefully that was helpful. And that's it, guys. That is it for the evening. We've been here for a little bit, so I've got to run. But thank you to those of you guys who got a reading, made a donation. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. Obviously, next week I will be here on Saturday. It's going to be tarot. We have a full moon coming on Monday, and I'm getting ready to do my astro weather for the week. So if I am able to do 2 separate videos, I'm hoping I can do a video for the weekly and a video for the moon. We'll see. I might be getting a little too ahead of myself, but I'm definitely going to talk to you guys at the very least about the astrology for the next week. We'll talk about the full moon that's coming in Cancer. Let me see what I can kind of get done tomorrow so I can put some more out about that, especially now that the moon is in Cancer. Usually I get it out a little bit earlier, but to be honest with you, whatever falls apart the next 3 or 4 days, there's like a lot of like beauty and healing in the breakdown. So a lot of people are going to have a lot of really intense feelings, especially if you have late degree of cardinal placements. So just be mindful if you are, an Aries or a Cancer or a Libra or a Capricorn. We're kind of going through the motions of letting certain things die off so we can start something new. So just be patient. I'll get that out for you guys soon. If you want to join my memberships, please do consider doing so. It makes it possible for me to keep creating more content. I have all new kinds of stuff that I'm structuring and kind of getting ready right now. And I think I'm going to try to get one of my newer videos out in this next week so you can see what it's going to kind of look like. I'm hesitant because the Mercury retrograde. So I'm like, I know I'm going to change things around, but that's okay. If you want to book a reading with me, check out my links below at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Got some openings next month if you'd like to get a reading, full and half-hour sessions. I also have one-question offers, but this is obviously a great way to be able to get in with me if you have a quick question. So join me next week if you would like to get a tarot card reading. You guys enjoy your weekend, and I will see all of you very soon. Take care.